Thanks a lot. Welcome here from Wiesbaden in Germany. Michael Veit is my name, and after last week's live hacking webinar, which you may have seen with a focus on Endpoint and Intercept X technologies, today it's about the Sophos NG Firewall, which now includes many technologies also present on the Endpoint with Intercept X, including machine learning. First of all, a short introduction about Sophos. We're the largest IT security vendor in Europe, and we just concentrate on corporate security. We got more than 3,000 employees and more than 100 million users, and we're leaders in the Gartner endpoint quadrants for UTM, that's firewall, and encryption and endpoint. We're the only one who is in this position. And what we deliver is the complete IT security for the enterprise, managed in a central console, and which includes all the technologies typically present in an organization, including the firewall, web, wireless, and email technologies, as well as all the endpoint, mobile, and encryption technologies. Today, it's about how to protect against modern threats. You probably have many security technologies already in place in your network security. That is gateway technologies like firewall, email, web security, application control, antivirus with several scan engines, intrusion prevention, and botnet command and control detection. There are some new technologies like sandboxing and deep learning. And those are the ones which I would like to focus on today because they can be used against unknown threats. In Sophos Labs, we see about 400,000 not yet known threats every day. And there are different technologies how to counter this. There are some ways of detecting known and unknown threats. And I'd like to go into a bit more detail about this. Let's compare anti-malware or security technologies with the protection of a bank. For the last few hundred years, there has been a guard in front of the bank. That's something like the firewall or the email or web security gateway. And there's a guard inside the bank. That's inside the endpoint, which means that the program has already been executed. So those technologies in front of the bank. Yeah? So before someone enters the bank, you can compare to some scanning technologies being done before a file even gets to the endpoint. So for the last, well, 2 or 3 decades, there has been antivirus. Antivirus can be compared with, in bank security context, like a wanted poster. Yeah? You see all the criminals which have ever been convicted of robbing a bank, there's a wanted poster. And if someone like this tries to enter the bank, then the guard in front of the bank can stop him. That's the same as the firewall or the email or the web security gateway with an antivirus. They know the known threats, and there are about 700 million known threats out there. So there's a wanted poster for each of them, and they will not be let through the antivirus scanner. But the criminals, of course, are trying to evade this. They're trying to get around this. So there are always new criminals which have never robbed a bank, which means there are new pieces of malware which no antivirus has ever seen before. And there's a new technology which comes into place at this point, and that's machine learning. Compared to the bank example, you can see that there have been lots of bank robbery situations which have been analyzed, and there was identified that most of the robbers were men. Yeah? Sometimes unshaven, they were wearing masks, they were wearing a sack over the shoulder or a gun in their hand, and this is typically for bank robbery situations. Now, the most important thing about machine learning is that you got the correct models and that you train them correctly. Let's go into this machine learning, which is quite a new technology which can help in quite a lot there. Let's go there into detail. So with a bank robbery example, in summer, if there's in summer someone going to a bank and wearing a ski mask, probably this is suspicious. it's probably a bank robbery situation, because in summer no one's wearing a mask. In winter you can't tell. Maybe it's just cold and windy, so that's not sure that this is a bank robbery situation. So let's have a look at the shoes. And if you see he's wearing ski shoes or something like this, it's very unsuspicious, yeah, because he can't run with those. If he's wearing regular shoes or running boots, you don't know. You have to look further, and so on. So, and now if this guy is not only wearing a ski mask or running shoes and a sack over the shoulder and maybe even a gun in the hand, then it's very likely, even though we don't know this guy, that this is a bank robbery situation. However, it's important to train those machine learning models. So if it's the 24th of December and he's wearing this kind of hat and those shoes, well, probably it's unsuspicious. Yeah? So with regards to antivirus and malware, we from Sophos have been in the antivirus business for more than 30 years. And we know all the viruses for the last 30 years, and we know all the good software for the last 30 years. So that's how we can train our model. Let's have a look at the different methods for machine learning. There have been traditional machine learning techniques around for the last 2 or 3 decades already, though they have not been used for antivirus yet, but there are some technologies available. And the traditional machine learning is that a human analyst identifies the attributes and defines the relationships. For example, the human analyst looks at bank robbery situations and says, well, the weather has something to do with the face cover, yeah, and maybe the shoes, but the weather doesn't have anything to do with what you're carrying over the shoulder, yeah. And then you're taking lots of bank robbery situations and training this model with this. The problem is the larger the model gets and the more variables are in the model, and the more difficult it gets for the traditional machine learning. It gets very large and sluggish and does not adapt very well to new situations. And with antivirus and malware, in the last 2 or 3 years, the ransomware which we've seen is not very easily adopted with the traditional machine learning models for antivirus. So Sophos is using the technology deep learning. Deep learning is something which is also used with face recognition, like Google image search, or with Siri, yeah, or even Tesla autonomous driving in the cars. So deep learning is a very efficient mechanism for very large data sets which change a lot. And that's what's happening with malware, with viruses, with ransomware today. So this deep neural network, which is the basis of deep learning, actually learns new features itself. So if there are new variables in a bank robbery situation, it would also say, oh, well, these features may be relevant. There doesn't have to be a human analyst to identify those features and define the relationships. So this deep learning model is doing something just like the human brain. It's adapting to new situations and learning automatically. And the effects, the result of this deep learning, especially the Sophos deep learning model, are very, very good and produce much less false positive. I will go further into this one later. They produce much less false positive than the traditional machine learning models, and it's much faster. The Sophos deep learning is, as I said, based on deep neural networks. That's a structure comparable to the human brain, and it does not need any signatures. So it's a signatureless detection of yet unknown malware, and it's very fast. It's much faster than the traditional antivirus. So actually on Sophos, the first thing which we check on a file is if our machine learning model detects it as probably good or probably bad. And only in very rare cases where this machine learning model cannot make a judgment, so very fast, a precise judgment, then we still use the traditional antivirus to get a second opinion and to bring in additional information from Sophos. You don't need an internet connection. This works completely offline. Yeah? So even if the client is not connected to the internet, it does not do any analysis in the cloud. It's just on the local client. and you don't need to train it on your premises. So it's no customer environment training necessary. You don't have to train it on your home developed software, on your homegrown software, let's call it like this, which sometimes can produce false positives, but this is a very, very reliable model which does not need any training with you. In the last 30 years, or even more than 30 years with antivirus experiences, we collected so many samples of bad and good software that we can have a very large data set to train it. So actually it's a few hundred millions of malware samples and of good software samples which we train it with. So we can very well check how good it actually detects new malware and how low the false positive rate is. And it's tested very, very, very good in external tests. So the testing institutes which saw this said this is by far the best machine learning model which they've seen so far. What we did is with our Sophos labs, we know the malware which we see every day, and we're talking about 400,000 of yet unknown pieces of malware which we see every day, new pieces of malware. The detection rate of the traditional endpoint security is, well, not so good for new threats. Yeah? So the traditional threats for the last years, the detection rate was better. But now the crooks, the criminals, are even buying the traditional AV licenses and trying to engineer their new malware to evade the traditional antivirus. So the traditional endpoint security has a very low false positive rate, but not a very high detection rate with modern threats. There are lots of new next-gen endpoint clients on the market which employ machine learning to detect yet unknown threats. In many cases they have a higher detection rate than the traditional antivirus or endpoint security, but they suffer from high false positive rate because those vendors do not have the 30 years experience and samples of Sophos. They produce lots of effort in the organizations if they test them, because they have a very, very high false positive rate. The Sophos Deep Learning model, which is actually and it has been there for about 10 years. We bought this technology from Invincea last year and integrated it and trained it with Sophos. So it's a very efficient, very good technology. And after the training with the Sophos 100 millions of samples, we actually have a very, very high detection rate with a very low false positive rate. A low false positive rate comparable to the traditional endpoint security, but a much higher detection rate. And this Sophos deep learning technology is integrated in Sophos Intercept X. Yeah, you may have heard about this one, an endpoint product, but it's also integrated in the firewall or gateway technologies by using the Sophos Sandstorm cloud-based SandBoxing solution. But machine learning can detect many things, but cannot detect everything, because let's go back to the bank example. Maybe there is a new bank robber which has never been seen before, though antivirus doesn't match, but he doesn't behave suspicious. He still enters the bank, but doesn't enter the bank from the front, but he enters the bank through a window which has been open. Yeah? So he doesn't come in the front door where it can be examined using machine learning or antivirus. It comes from through the back door in the endpoint. That's exploit, using exploit in operation systems or in application software. Yeah? That's how, for example, WannaCry came into endpoints, just over the network, over a backdoor using exploits. So there are even more technologies to detect something bad during execution of a file. So machine learning and antivirus, there are examination technologies before a file is executed. Exploit prevention means that we're looking at a system where this file is executed, or even maybe it's coming in through a Word document or just a website. Yeah? So we're doing exploit prevention and also behavior monitoring. So we're monitoring if a program is suddenly starting to encrypt files. It may be a yet unknown ransomware. Yeah, those are technologies how we, for example, detected WannaCry or NotPetya, ransomware from which appeared there in last year and did a lot of damage. And actually no one in the industry detected those using antivirus or machine learning. So those modern threats came by all those technologies because they were engineered with a lot of effort, but Sophos still detected them by behavior monitoring to see we detected the encryption and stopped it. And that's what can be done not only on the endpoint, it can also be done in a virtual environment in the sandbox. And this is what we provide with as an addition to the XG firewall. Yeah? So the XG firewall or next generation firewall is integrated with Sophos Sandstorm. Sophos Sandstorm is doing an analysis of executable files which are downloaded via email or attached to an email, or which are linked in an email, or even which are downloaded over the web. If there's an yet unknown file, then it's sent to a cloud-based sandbox and analyzed there with those technologies I just described. So Sophos Sandstorm, first the firewall has a look at a file attached to an email or a file downloaded from the internet. Then if this file is already known as something good or bad, yeah, it's blocked or admitted. But if the file is not yet known, then this file is uploaded into a safe environment, and there it is executed. It's executed in a Windows 7, in a Windows 10, in an Android, or in any environment depending on the file type. And then we monitor the behavior of this file. If it tries to do something suspicious, for example, there is modern malware which tries to detect, am I running in a sandbox? Yeah? And if a file is, or if a program is already trying to evaluate, am I running in a sandbox, this is very suspicious in the first place, because no regular software will try to evaluate, am I running in a sandbox? And then we monitor, is it trying to access certain memory areas to steal passwords, or is it trying to encrypt files? And this is all done in a cloud-based sandbox, the Sophos Sandstorm. And let me show you how this actually works in practice. So this is a phishing email which has just been gotten by a user, and this advises for Spectre and Meltdown. And you can see there is, well, obviously someone is trying, let me see, giving a link that there is a patch for Spectre and Meltdown. Yeah, and if I, as a victim user, click on this link in the phishing email, then you see the file which shall be downloaded from the internet, but it is sent to Sandstorm for analysis. So in for Sandstorm, the analysis taking place. This is the XG firewall, and there you see that there's a counter about Sandstorm. Let's go to Advanced Threat and Sandstorm Activity, and there we see this download from windowsupdates.com with a O instead of with a 0 instead of an O in the name, and it is already in progress. So the analysis is in progress. We can see this on the firewall. Let's go into the report, and there we see some details, and that we see that we're still waiting for the results. This analysis may take about a few seconds to a few minutes, depending on how long we need to have a look at the file. This is what the user says, and now he gets the message, this download is blocked. The file you were downloading has been blocked because it's a security risk. Let's look about the reason. Well, Sandstorm found malicious behavior when detonating this file in this environment, in this sandboxed environment. Now let's have a look at the report. Okay, these are informations about this file. You see the analysis results. Suspicious. An executable with low reputation is detected by machine learning classifier. So our machine learning classifier says, oh well, it's got a very low reputation, that's probably something bad. I haven't yet seen it before. But let's have a look what it's also doing. It's creating a suspended process, okay? It reads data from the Windows system configuration, okay, looks at Windows, and then it has some evasive technologies. That means techniques. It executes code to read CPU configuration, has a look at which CPU am I running, and it checks for the presence of a debugger. A debugger is something what a regular program shouldn't have any problem with. But a piece of malware actually does have problems with this, because a debugger might detect that something bad is happening there. And then it changes permissions of a memory region used by system libraries. So it tries probably to change those system libraries. Okay, that does some other things in memory, and it exhibits generally malicious behavior. So this is the reason why this was actually blocked. This is how Sophos Sandstorm integrates with other technologies. Sophos Sandstorm is actually a cloud-based service which is available from different Sophos products, including the next-gen firewall, the XG, which you've just seen, the web gateways and the email gateways. Also from the Sophos SG, the UTM, it's also got integration with Sophos Sandstorm. So Sandstorm is an add-on license available for all the gateway products which do email and web scanning, in addition to the antivirus signatures which are also scanned, of course, there. Now Sophos, as I told you in the beginning, actually provides security solutions of all kinds for the organization, for the enterprise. So not just gateway and not just endpoint or encryption, but all of them, and all of them in a single management. And something special is that we have an ecosystem of solutions which actually do communicate with each other. We call this synchronized security, which means that solutions do exchange information and can automatically react to threats. Let's go back to the bank example. If this clerk inside the bank, if this guard had now detected there is someone obviously threatening the cashier and there's money going there, so he convicted actually the criminal, that's this woman with a gun here. Okay, he tries to get hold of her, but what's she doing? She's shooting in the air, and everyone in the bank, including all the customers and people working there, they are fleeing the bank. This is the problem which has been there since IT security exists, which means that the endpoint, which is the guard here, does not talk to the firewall out here. Because the guard here, the firewall, does not know who is actually the criminal. And what we are doing now, we are giving the two of them radios so that they can talk to each other. We call this security heartbeat. And now the guard inside can tell the guard outside that the criminal, the bank robber, is actually this woman with a ponytail and the big bag here. So this that's the way how the guard on the outside can identify the robber and prevent her from fleeing. Identify her, because normally the firewall does not know anything what's happening on the endpoint. In a technical way, we call this security heartbeat, and let's see how this works out. We got a client here, a Windows or a Mac client with Sophos endpoint, next-gen endpoint, and even Sophos encryption on it, and that's the firewall. That's the XG firewall gateway. So now, if this endpoint detects a threat, he tells other Sophos components, like this antivirus, that this bad process has to be killed, okay? It also tells the local file encryption, remove the keys from memory so that no bad process can steal data and transfer it somewhere. And it also tells over this heartbeat the firewall. Firewall, do not let this client out of the network again. Don't let it communicate to the internet. Don't let it communicate to the servers. So this client is automatically isolated. It cannot leave the local segment. The same is the other way around. So if the firewall detects a communication which is suspicious, so this is probably a botnet command and control communication, which means that this client has been taken over by some bad malware. Yeah? So there's maybe some spy process running in the background. So the firewall automatically takes the client in quarantine, and it also tells the client, hey, what process has just tried to communicate to that destination in the internet, so that the endpoint client can again take action and knows which process is the bad one, which the antivirus or even the machine learning could not detect before. And it tells other components like the encryption solution to remove the keys to prevent any theft of confidential information, for example. This also works if the client does not send heartbeat signals anymore. So if this client has no heartbeat and the firewall doesn't see any heartbeat from the client, so it doesn't know the state of the client. That's okay. Maybe it's just shut down because the user is at home. It's evening. But if this client is then trying to communicate without sending a heartbeat signal, then this client is blocked because obviously the Sophos services are not running correctly or some other reason for blocking this heartbeat, so it must not communicate. If it doesn't tell me I got a good heartbeat. The same is also, of course, true for servers. So if there's a malware, a virus on the server, the firewall does not let any client communicate with the server because the clients could get infected with ransomware sitting on the server, as well as the server may not connect to the internet. So there are many, many use cases for these heartbeat communication between workstations, servers, mobile devices, and of course the XG firewall. There's even one more advanced thing which has just come into the XG firewall a few months ago. This is the Synchronized App Control. Synchronized App Control means that there is a connection between the endpoint, this heartbeat, and the XG firewall, and whenever the client tries to communicate to the internet, then the firewall asks for which application is this. The client has to tell this application, and then the XG firewall can say, well, this is it's an application for IP telephony, so it's prioritized or it's throttled because it's download of whatever large things. It's a download thing, or it's a bad application which I do not like to have, so I'll block it. The traditional way of application control on the gateway is that the firewall has, or the application or the web gateway has signatures. This is a Dropbox communication, or this is a Skype for Business communication, or this is a TeamViewer or whatever communication. The problem is whenever Skype updates the software, then the firewall needs to get new signatures for this. And there is even very, very bad software which tells the firewall, well, I'm a Skype for Business, yeah, so let me out. Or they tell them I'm a Chrome browser, let me out, even if it's a very bad software trying to communicate to the command and control server. So with this technology, now it's very clear for the firewall which application is communicating, because the client tells the firewall, well, it's actually this program trying to communicate, and then the firewall sees, well, even if the client says, if the application says I'm a Chrome, there are some protocol ways to tell this, then the firewall actually sees, no, it's a ransomware trying to communicate home. So these are features which are only possible because the XG firewall has a communication channel to the endpoint. We are the first in the industry to have this and to exchange this kind of information. Now let me show you this on a demo. This here is the XG firewall management interface. I also see a green security heartbeat connected to a client. This is actually the client here. So it says this computer is protected. Even it says in German. So the green means computer is protected. And this is the firewall. And here I got a firewall rule which says only communication. It's this rule here. In the firewall rule base, I say this is the source, so the LAN interface. This is the destination WAN interface, any networks, and I can say scan it HTTP, HTTPS, do a sandstorm detection, And I can say with regards to synchronized security, the minimum source heartbeat is green, which means only clients with a green heartbeat are allowed to communicate through the firewall. Okay, let's test this if I can communicate through the firewall. Okay, it says I can communicate through the firewall, everything is good because this client has a green heartbeat. Now let's bring this client into a red heartbeat. I got the phishing mail, which I just showed you before, and I deactivated a few mechanisms in order for me to be able to download this piece of malware. So what I've got here actually is a bad HTA script which starts a PowerShell, downloads a ransomware, and tries to encrypt local files. This is the very bad piece of malware. I'm executing this. So this PowerShell is now downloading from the internet the real malware, writing it to a local file, building it together, and now trying to encrypt. So now you see there is the endpoint says a ransomware is blocked in this ransomware.exe. The client is getting red. It says there's a threat detected, and the firewall is getting red because in the heartbeat I see one client who is a risk. Now first of all, let's try to access the internet again. I'm doing a reload of this website, and now I see internet access blocked. You cannot access the internet because the security state of your device cannot be confirmed. The reason for blocking the site is that the security heartbeats requirements for this network are not fulfilled, which means without any administrator getting the red sign from the endpoint, the firewall was automatically told this client is not okay, and because I had this firewall rule which says only clients with a green heartbeat may access the internet, this client is isolated. It cannot access the file servers in the DMC anymore. It cannot access the internet to call home to the command and control server in order to exfiltrate information, yeah, or to send away the key which is used for encrypting the file. So in addition, by the way, the local client has stopped the encryption of files and the original files were recovered. So automatically, without any human interaction by an administrator, the systems have gone into a safe, complete state. I told you before about this synchronized app control, which is also one thing I can show you right here. You see, there is this synchronized application control detected new apps trying to communicate. So this is the information which the firewall gets from the clients in the network. For example, I see here that there is a BitTorrent client found on 2 different systems which was trying to communicate. BitTorrent, that's a file sharing client. Do I want to have this in my environment, my company network? I don't think so. So I can right away say this BitTorrent client gets into the application category, peer-to-peer networking, and of course this application category is stopped from communicating. I don't want to have this in my environment. Just as I can see here, I see, let's see, I don't want to mark those. Dropbox communication. Do I want to have Dropbox communication? I saw it on this client, and I can also customize it. It's in the application category storage and backup. I can choose the category, and I can of course put it into a category which is blocked if I don't want to have Dropbox communication. So even if Dropbox got a very new version which I don't detect by a signature on the gateway, the client tells me which application was found and I can immediately take action. Just as the PowerShell. The bad ransomware which you just saw, which the script which downloaded the ransomware from the internet used PowerShell to communicate to the internet. So, and I saw from which clients this happened. If I don't want to have this PowerShell communicating to the internet, I can right away customize this and prevent that it gets somewhere. So this is an kind of insight into communication. So I see what application on the client try to communicate, and I can right away take action. This is something which no other firewall in the market can do. So it's just us. So you see, that's our way of integrating products with each other. In the end, I will still want to give you an overview over the XG Firewall. The XG Firewall is our next generation firewall, which has got many great technologies, including the protection modules, which you may already know from the Sophos SG, the UTM, the former Astaro. So for technology-wise, we have about the same protection modules, including network protection, web and application protection, Sandstorm, email and web server protection. I will go into the modules later, what they contain. The XG products also consist of hardware, and we got a full range of hardware from the very, very smallest appliance model to the largest appliance model. There are also other provisioning possibilities. I'll show you them very soon. We got a full range of wireless access points, which can be managed by the XG appliances, as well as RED devices. RED devices are remote Ethernet devices, which are small VPN boxes, which without configuration are used to extend your corporate network. You just put one of those boxes in a remote location, and all the networks in this remote locations are automatically connected as if they are inside the headquarter corporate network. Very, very easy deployments of remote sites with the RED devices. So this is the hardware which we provide, and we provide an enterprise-grade central management with a Sophos Firewall Manager, which can either be on premises with a customer or with a partner. We even offer this as cloud firewall management server run by Sophos, from which a partner can manage all his customers without having own infrastructure. In addition, we got a reporting server, iView, for extensive reports of all kinds. So this whole framework of XG products is available. Let's have a look at the technology modules. In the base firewall, there are the basic actually firewall things, including wireless. This comes with each hardware. Actually, it's for free with the hardware. And then you can buy technology modules, which add functionality like certain VPN technologies, intrusion prevention, advanced threat protection technologies, or web server protection, which means if you got a web server and it's available from the internet, you can protect it from attacks. We got the web protection for internal users who access the internet. There is antivirus filtering, URL filtering. There's the synchronized app control, which you just saw, and we got mail protection as a module. And of course, that was the introduction here, the Sandstorm protection with cloud-based sandboxing, including the machine learning, deep learning technology, which are introduced. So those are modules which you can buy each of them, or you can buy them in bundles. With a deployment, from the deployment kind of view, we got appliance series from the very, very smallest to the largest appliance, fitting actually any environment. The largest one got several 10 gigabit interfaces and lots of computing power, and the smallest one don't even have a hard disk and can be deployed virtually in any small environment, in any small remote location. Of course, you also get them for virtualized environments, for Hyper-V, for VMware, for Xen, for KVM, and even for Azure. Or Azure, depending on how you spell it. So actually we got virtual machines running in those environments. You choose the deployment factor, whatever fits best your environment. You can of course also combine those. Yeah, so you got appliances at your premises, and in your Azure environment, you're also having a virtual appliance running there. About the licensing, there are several bundles available. So as you can see here, the boxes are the different subscriptions. So there's a network protection, that's all the VPN, advanced threat protection, there's the web protection, email, web server, sandstorm protection. So this is the full bundle with all the technologies which we have here. Now, if, for example, you don't need all of them, if, for example, if you don't need the web server or the email, then you could go with this bundle. Important is the red one, Sandstorm. This is actually necessary for the full protection. Yeah? So the traditional antivirus, which is in the email and web protection included, or in the web server protection, it's not sure that all the latest most modern threats can be detected without Sandstorm, so I highly recommend getting Sandstorm protection. You can get all those bundles either as software for your virtual environment, or you can get them also together with hardware, of course. If you're interested in this, please contact your Sophos sales partner, your Sophos partner, and he can make you offers and also give you advice what would be the best hardware or virtual variant depending on your communication requirements, yeah? Depending on the bandwidth, on the number of users which you have, and they can advise you what license, what appliance hardware would be the best for you. So this was an overview over the next-gen technologies which are now also available not only in endpoint client like Intercept X, but also in Sophos Sandstorm and the Sophos NG Firewall. And now I would like to give over to Peter, who has been answering chat questions in the background, if there have been any questions which may be interesting for the whole audience.
Well, good morning, everyone. I have a few questions here. So the first question would be, what is the situation if I'm currently running an SG from Sophos or a CyberRoam appliance? How to upgrade to the XG?
Okay, so first of all, if you're running a UTM as an SG firewall, you can directly right now buy Sandstorm also as an add-on license for this platform. If you would like to upgrade to the XG firewall, you actually get a trade. If you're already using SG hardware, you can right away install the XG software on this SG hardware, and from your Sophos partner and from Sophos, you will get the new firmware and you will get an upgraded license, an XG license. So your SG hardware will be transferred to an XG hardware, that's just a new firmware, and your SG license will be transferred from Sophos to an XG license. Yeah? So contact your Sophos partner and you will get for free actually an XG from what you have right now as an SG. With CyberRoam, there are also ways of getting an XG hardware. So please contact your Sophos partner for this if you got a CyberRoam right now. With the SG, it's a bit easier. With the CyberRoam, contact your Sophos partner, and they will actually provide you a way what you can do.
Okay, just to add some information, so we also have a public knowledge base article where you can get information which CyberRoam appliance or which Sophos appliance are eligible for an upgrade to the XG firewall. That's the KBA 122869, so please reach out to this KBA for more information. I have another question for you, Michael. If I want to benefit from synchronized security, from synchronized application control, but I have another endpoint product. So for example, I'm running a blue or green or red endpoint product, but I want to benefit from synchronized app control. Do I have an option here? So how to enable this synchronized security when I already have an endpoint?
So synchronized app control, to work, it needs a Sophos endpoint. But the Sophos next-gen endpoint, Intercept X, can also can work together in conjunction with another endpoint. So if you got a McAfee or whatever other endpoint or Kaspersky, Intercept X, which is also the basis for synchronized app control, can run on top of this regular endpoint. So Intercept X is one of the components which is required for synchronized app control. But nevertheless, it's recommended, generally it's necessary in order to benefit from this security heartbeat technology that it's Sophos components talking to each other. So at least on each client, on each server, on any on the firewall, any device benefiting from this security heartbeat, it's necessary that a Sophos component is running there. We integrate with other vendors. They can actually query our management interface in Sophos Central, for example, for information, but the out-of-the-box deployment, just pressing a button and solutions are communicating with each other. Therefore, it's necessary that a Sophos component is installed on this client.
Okay, so one more question. In which products is SandStorm available? Only in XG Firewall or in a few more?
SandStorm is actually available as an add-on license in the XG Firewall, as shown in the webinar, in the SG, the Sophos UTM Firewall, in the Sophos Web Appliance, and in the Sophos Email Appliance. In all of these products, it's available as an add-on technology. It's a separate license or included in one of the bundles like those as just shown in the previous slide.
Okay, more information regarding SandStorm. So where is the sandbox located? We know in the cloud, but especially when talking about customers for the European Union, we probably need to specify it a little bit more.
Yes, so this the data analyzed there, well, that's actually files which we have not yet seen, are analyzed either in a European data center or in a US data center, and you can actually choose which data center to use. Typically in the European Union, we're using the EU data center. Currently, this data center is in the UK, but since the Brexit is probably coming, even if I'm not yet quite sure about this, we will take steps that when sometime before the Brexit, the data center is still in the European Union, and we're at the moment choosing where this data center is probably be located, but you can be sure that also because of the GDPR, that all the data of European customers will stay within the European Union. And something technical at this point, this analysis of a file, if it's malicious or not, is just done in memory. So it's not written to any Sophos system, and if it's found that this file is nothing bad, then it's right away deleted from memory, never stored anywhere. If it's a piece of malware, if it's a new virus, a new piece of ransomware, then of course we keep it in order to produce signatures or to train it, to train a deep learning model with this new piece of malware. But any unsuspicious file is deleted right from memory and never stored anywhere. And this is information which we also give written to customers, so if they need this for GDPR compliance or any documentation, they of course get this from us.
Okay, so far for the questions that were asked really frequently. There were many specific questions which I cannot answer in the chat, so please reach out to your local Sophos partners, reach out to the local Sophos team so they can help you out to find a good solution to you. And that's it from my side, so I think I'm giving back to Tanja. Thank you, Michael, and goodbye.
Thanks again, Michael and Peter, for the presentation and for answering the questions. Again, the webinar has been recorded and we will send the recording and the slides to you afterwards. Thanks again for joining today, and we hope to welcome you in one of our upcoming Sophos webinars. Have a nice day.
Thanks also from my side. Have a nice day.
Goodbye.